being scared. A fire broke out, I remember, and it was approaching the armament room where we kept all the ammunition. And these wounded men got off their backs and climbed on benches, grabbed fire extinguishers, and helped put the fire out, which was one of the bravest things I've ever seen. The ambulance drivers came out when they could. When they got shot at, they had to go back.
We loaded up about 15 stretcher cases, and then somebody says, "Here they come again." We had to go inside to keep from getting blasted ourselves. And when we came back out, the Japanese had just riddled everything. And there was only 2 survivors left out of the 15 that we originally had. I was in shock. If I'd known what an atomic bomb was then, I could have thrown it at them.
I had some cigarettes, I remember, and I passed them out. In those days, almost everybody smoked. There was one kid who said he'd never smoked before in his life. About a minute later, one of the planes came by and emptied its ammunition on us, and they killed this kid who was having his first cigarette.
KGBQ, all cars. KGBQ to all cars and country stations. Car 20 and 75 reports, plane bombing Pearl Harbor. Place is all afire.
There was just bedlam. People rushing everywhere. There was debris all over the sidewalks. There were fires. Sirens were screaming, and ambulances and fire engines. And I weaved my way through this pandemonium, giving my identification, and finally I got out to Tripler Hospital. Tripler Hospital at that time was a 250-bed hospital. And within a half hour after the bombing started, they had admitted 1,500 casualties to that little 250-bed hospital.
When people remember Pearl Harbor, they don't think of the carnage. And this is because the photographs at the time were sanitized. It was thought bad for morale if people in the mainland could see what had really happened. So they didn't see the bodies lined up on Ford Island in front of the officer's bungalow, their blood soaking the grass, their limbs hanging from the branches of the banyan tree overhead. They didn't see the corpses stacked up to the windowsills at the Hickam Base Hospital. And they didn't see those 40 garbage cans full of amputated limbs outside of Tripler. And they didn't see the amputation saw at Tripler that was used so often that it was said to be hot to the touch.
After the third wave, I must have looked awful. I know I was bloody and battered, but I was not wounded. An ambulance came by and told me to hop in. He said there was a Purple Heart and a bed waiting in the hospital for me. And I said, no way, I wasn't going to deprive somebody who needed it of a bed. And he said, so long, hero. Well, I didn't feel like a hero.
I went through the casualties and chose the ones that I thought I could help. Well, that started a 3-day surgical marathon. And I operated day and night for the 3 days. We'd stop long enough to take a bite to eat or just lean against the wall and sleep for 5 minutes and then go on to another case.
5 of our vessels approached Pearl Harbor. One got caught in a net, another got stuck at the bottom, and the crew decided to blow themselves up. Another aimed at the Chicago, but it was too close and the torpedo went under the Chicago and hit another ship instead. Unfortunately, that ship was used as living quarters for Navy personnel, a large number of whom died. Originally, I was supposed to attack an aircraft carrier, and I remember that we were very disappointed when we learned that there were no enemy carriers in the harbor. Instead, I went after the Arizona.
I was a Marine aboard USS Arizona. I was 24 years old. Okay. Yes, I was scared. And thinking that, will I ever see my family again? Will I ever get home?
And then at about 15 minutes after 8, there was this bomb coming down, and we all looked up and we saw it. And the thing looked like a Volkswagen coming down. It looked that big. And we thought it was going to hit us. And we all hit the deck. And of course, it hit the Arizona.
The bomb landed forward in the ship, and it went into the fuel and ammunition chain, and then the entire ship blew up. Tons and tons of ammunition, thousands and thousands of gallons of fuel, all blew at one time. And when this debris went past us, it went hundreds of feet in the air, the insides of that ship. It's just something that you can't really tell how bad that was, how loud it was. Couldn't hear her for a couple of weeks after that.
And when she blew, the next thing I remember was this tremendous big ball of fire, and then it looked like some great big wind just picked us up and slammed us up against the forward part of the bridge. When we picked ourselves up and looked back aft towards the Arizona, she was just one big ball of fire.
It started shuddering, shaking, and we looked out and there was nothing but a white furnace in front of us. And those people come walking out of that furnace with all their clothes burned off and charted black. I touched one man that I knew. His skin come off of my hand.
The word horrified doesn't describe it. I felt so terribly badly for these boys. They were blown right off of their ships. They're blown off the Tennessee, blown off the West Virginia, blown off of the Maryland, and blown into the water.
The Oklahoma took 10 torpedoes and I believe 2 bombs. And when I saw her rolling over, I'll never forget this as long as I live. It seemed like everything went into slow motion. Have you ever had a dream like you're running real fast and yet your feet are just barely moving? You're trying to get away from someone or something? Well, that's the way the Oklahoma was. She started and it just seemed so very slow.
We watched the water rise and felt the deck slipping from under us as the list became more pronounced. The deck slipped out from under me and my hand snatched at the empty air. As she rolled over, I was pitched into a mass of dead and dying. Then the dark waters closed over me as the ship came to rest upside down on the bottom of the harbor. It happened too quickly for us to have known much fear, too quickly for us to get out. On the other hand, it had seemed like a lifetime. The bodies of our shipmates bobbed against the handling room entrance to the passageway. Sooner or later, we would join our dead comrades. Perhaps others were joining me in my silent prayer. God, please get us out of this.
The air above us was thick with black smoke. We were doing the best we could. There was a destroyer ahead of us, but we had to pass it. We could have sunk that destroyer, but our orders were to sink a carrier and then a battleship. Because of the heavy bombing and the rough waters, most of our equipment broke down. We were pushed against the coral reefs several times. Our torpedoes couldn't be fired. There was nothing we could do.
Sakamaki dived overboard from his helpless mini-submarine. The breakers washed him unconscious onto a Hawaiian beach. When he woke up, a U.S. Army sergeant was staring down at him. Ensign Kazuo Sakamaki became United States Prisoner of War #1.
What more could you ask for in a 1.5-inch thick steak that cooks up tender and juicy? How about less? Pork, the other white meat.
Imprisoned by sinus pain, trapped by sinus pressure, it takes the power of Sanyutab to release the pressure and stop the pain. That's something Sanyutab's done for more people for more years than any other sinus medicine. Sanyutab, relief for prisoners of sinus pain.
Release me and let me live again.
They go to extremes to prove the engine durability of this Cadillac.
Let's move it out. Hold on, Art. Let's dust them.
Punishing GM's V8 with the extremes of nature, with raging sand and freezing snow. One more reason why, after 5 years of driving, no luxury car made in America is more reliable than Cadillac.
Hey, Tom, how you doing back there?
Still going strong.
With 99 models redesigned and engineered, GM is putting quality on the road.
Do you know what's changing? Today's pork, 31% less fat. The other white meat.
Coming up next, friendly fire on December 7th, 50 years ago, as we remember Pearl Harbor.
Thus we grant your people freedom.
And just in time to buy televisions to watch Wild Guy Jim McMahon and Eagles play Giants. Oh, what a wonderful world!
Yeah!
Sunday, 60 Minutes takes you to Branson, Missouri. Branson, Missouri? Who wants to go to Branson, Missouri? You do. And are you in for a treat?
Yeah! This is CBS.
Losing messages was bad enough.
Norman, call me at 8.
Losing Natasha was too much. I got Call Answering, the new voice messaging service from New York Telephone. It takes messages even while you're on the phone, so you never miss a call. Bye, Mom. No answering machine can do that. I get a message.
Norman, it's Bernice.
Isn't love wonderful?
Order Call Answering now. Call 1-800-MESSAGE.
New York Telephone.
What's up? The talking elephants our sales force left with yesterday?
Yeah, there's been a little problem. Do we have any that speak elephant? Now who's going to get them to all of our salesmen?
One company offers 1030 delivery to more places than anyone and treats them all with mammoth importance.
Presenting Hugo, the talking elephant.
Federal Express, our most important package, is yours.
The final verdict in the Betty Broderick murder trial on hard copy.
Admiral Kimmel was as helpless as a sailor swimming through burning water. He couldn't do anything. All he could do was watch the destruction of his fleet. And as he stood at the windows of fleet headquarters, a spent .50 caliber shell flew into the room and struck him on the chest. And it fell to the ground. He picked it up and he turned to the people around him and he said,
"It would have been more merciful had it killed me."
Two hours after the attack on Pearl Harbor began, it ended. With a loss of only 29 of their 350 planes, the Japanese squadrons returned to their carriers.
Our squadron lost only one aircraft in the attack, but I wasn't sure if we'd been successful or not. Sometime after we returned, we were surprised to learn that we had done a very good job.
It was almost identical to the way they had planned it, with the exception of the fact they never went back for the third wave. The commander, who had been hesitant all along about the risk, decided he didn't want to take the risk. Had they gone back with a third wave, they would have really fully executed their plan, and it would have been far more devastating a strike.
After the planes returned to the carrier, the ship turned toward Japan. I don't remember my thoughts on the way home, but I'm sure I was very satisfied with myself. But then